So, okay, here we go. We back again. Uh, First thing I want to say is I want to say thank you to all the people who viewed the video. It wasn't easy saying some of that stuff. Some of that stuff I hadn't thought about in some years. It brings back a little bit of feelings when I say it and remember it. But it's cool. I've grown so much since then. But I'm extremely honored and elated that somebody would take the time out and listen to anything I got to say. So let's jump right back into the story. So after the gentleman asked me, find me, come back the next day, find me. So I stayed up that night, was at home, practicing my little boxing that I had seen him do in the gym. Down in the basement of the house, right next to the washing machine and the dryer. It was just a little space I used to use to practice my little boxing. And anytime someone would come down there, I would stop doing what I was doing, pretend like I was cleaning up or looking for something. And then as soon as they leave, I start right back over again, start my little boxing routine, throwing my little punches and everything. Didn't know what I was doing. So the next day come, I go home, find some shorts, go to the gym, come to find out they was one of my older brother's shorts, so I had to cuff them about 3 times around my waist so they could fit a little bit. Walked through the gym, found the guy. He sat me down and he told me, man, I don't, I'm not no babysitter. I'm not here to be babysitting no little kids. He said, man, you're gonna do whatever I tell you to, or you can't come back here no more. And so this put me in a hell of a dilemma because I feel like I gotta do what he asked me to do. And at this point, actually, really, I am in utter desperation. I really seriously need for this situation to be ended. I needed to find some type of resolve to this whole situation. I'm going through hell. I'm getting abuse from all ends. Every single type of abuse you can imagine except for sexual abuse. I was getting so emotionally, mentally, verbally, physically, I was just getting it. So what I decided to do was do whatever this man asked me to, man. Out of desperation, I'm going to do whatever this man asked me to. If this man would have told me when he sat me down, look, man, there's a little cup of cat piss over there I need you to drink, I definitely would have drank some cat piss. I would have been drinking cat piss in there trying to learn how to box if he had told me that. That's how dire the situation was for me. So, he put us through that, to try to put me through the exercise with the rest of the boys. And I couldn't do any push-ups. I couldn't jump rope. I was extremely nervous and fearful that I was going to do something wrong. I thought the people would laugh at me, which they did. They did. But I tried anyway. And, I felt good that I was trying to do something. I finally found something that I could do. And I remember watching the Kung Fu movies, how the master would always take the young pupil or the student through a series of tests in order for him to build up enough skill and enough strength to go out and defeat whatever enemy that he had. But it would be an extremely difficult obstacle course of things that you must do before you was ready. And so I accepted that. I accepted whatever the man was telling me to. Now, I must say, the words politically correct was invented, but not in that context, and I don't think they put those words together back then. So at this time, you could be called any and every name: hammerhead, wophead, wallerhead, I mean, the names was endless. The things that they said to you, you know, they used the word, uh, uh, you know, it rhymes with swag, but ends with, I mean, but begins with an F. They use that. They call you all types of punks and sissies if you don't do it, you know, the way that they wanted you to. And so I went in there and I went hard. I did whatever they asked them to. And eventually, one day at a time, I started to get better. I started to get stronger. I was able to do 10 push-ups. I was able to do 15 push-ups. I was able to do 20 push-ups. I was able to run around Cadoza track one time. I was able to run 2 times. I was able to run 3 and 4 times. I was able to run up and down them Cadoza steps, just like everybody else. And I would try to put my all in whatever I was trying to do, because this is a matter of life and death for me and my mind as a 10-year-old kid, getting bullied and beat up, picked on, and everybody just can kind of do whatever they wanted to you whenever they wanted to do it. There wasn't nothing you can do about it. And with the abuse that I was getting, the verbal abuse that I was getting out of the gym, it really wasn't a big deal because I was getting it everywhere anyway. At least I was getting something out of being called all these names. I was being able to learn a skill so that one day I could do something about it. Because you could say whatever you want to me then. You can abuse me verbally. Wasn't nothing I could do. I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't know how to fight. So I just either had to accept it or get beat up if I said something back. So, you know, you get tired of getting beat up, so you stop saying something back. And so I worked hard, man. I got in there, man. But I tell you, one of the days that I remember, one of the most important days that I remember, you know, so it's been months. I'm training hard. Like I said before, I'm doing double the push-ups. I'm doing double the jumping jacks. I'm doing double the laps. I'm doing double the stair runs. I'm hitting the bags. I'm hitting the heavy bags as hard as I can. I'm hitting the speed bag. I'm hitting I'm shadow boxing like a madman. I'm trying my best to do it as fast as I can, as best as I can. And so they was observing me. They was watching me. And I guess they figure, you know, this guy ready to fight. But every time they would say, okay, we're going to put your gloves on, put your little hand wraps on. By the way, back in these days, I couldn't afford a pair of hand wraps, but I thought that was the major thing, to have a pair of white hand wraps. So me and Dump, what we used to do is we used to make our own hand wraps. You know, homemade hand wraps. And what we used to do is take a sock, make a hole for the thumb, and cut the top off for our knuckles. And we used to put our hands in the sock, and then put our hands inside the boxing glove to protect our knuckles. And that was one of the things that we did. You know, we ain't had no money for no hand wraps. It's about $2 back then. But I'm poor. I know I couldn't afford any. And I believe he came up with that idea to make the hand wraps. And I thought that was an ingenious idea for me. I tell young people that today, of course, they don't believe that. So it's about time to spar. Now, every time, you know, it's time for me to spar, I would get sick. My stomach hurt. I can hear my mother calling me right now. I got to go to dinner. I got to eat. I got to finish my homework. So I would always have an excuse to leave. And then they eventually noticed that I was just scared and I didn't want to get in the gym. But this particular day, they want me to spar. And it actually gave me the gloves, and I'm about to have a nervous breakdown. I want to cry because I don't want to fight. I just want to practice fighting. I don't want to actually fight. And you know, so they put the gloves in my hand, and so I get the gloves off, and I'm headed for the door. And so he had two of the little bigger guys stand at the door and stop me from going out. And so I'm dead panicking. I'm trying to get my way through these dudes. They saying, nah, Gene said you got to come back in the gym. And I'm like, oh, God, I don't want to go back in it because I know they're going to want me to spar. So I remember they dragged me back in there. They make me put the gloves on, my little hand wraps on. They put the headgear on. Soon they put the headgear on and I step in the ring. The tears started flowing. I started crying. I'm crying. I'm like, oh, God, I don't want to fight. And so, but this is one of the things that I look back in hindsight and I said that this is one of the best things for me. Because the grown-ups, Gene and the other guys that was training us in there, they didn't have no sympathy or no mercy for me. They knew and could see me better than I could see myself. They knew me better than I knew myself. And they knew my abilities better than I knew what my abilities was. So they didn't show me no mercy. They let me sit there, cry, bing, bing, start the bell. So I wouldn't fight. The guy would hit me, I would just stand there and cry. And so I thought in my mind that if I cried, they would feel sorry for me. You know, take these gloves and the head, get off and let me, get out the ring. But they didn't. They did the exact opposite. They told the guy who was in front of me to hit him harder. So the more he hit me, the harder he hit me, the more I cried. So I'm thinking if I get to hollering and screaming up there, maybe the guy wouldn't beat me up. But he was under the same pressure I was under because if he didn't fight, then they was going to get on him. So he beat me. The bell ring. I come back to the corner and I'm sitting there, sitting down, snot coming out my nose. Tears pouring. I'm saying, please, I don't want to fight. I don't want to do this. I want to go home. And so what he did was get in front of me, slap the headgear, and he told me, man, you going to stop acting like a little punk. It's time for you to step up. You got to fight. It ain't no choice. You can't go home. You're not going home. And so I'm panicking. And what he told me was one of the most important things. He said that if you don't fight, I'm going to walk home with you. I know you live right around the corner. I know your father, your mother, all your brothers and sisters. And I'm going to tell them you around here scared and you letting people beat you up. And if you don't fight, I know they're going to deal with you when you get back home. So now I'm stuck. I'm like, I got to make a decision. Because I can either do this now or I can fight one person today in this ring, or I can go home and deal with my brothers and sisters, which could be multiple people. And the thing was that I didn't want to disappoint my mother because she was the one who initially brought me around here. I'm panicking, I'm crying, I'm asking, I'm begging her to take me to do karate. She wouldn't, so she decided to take me around here. And I didn't want to disappoint her or make her mad because she went out of her way to do this for me. So I got to get in there. The bell ring. He give me the smooch. Get in there and fight. So I get in there. I put my little hands up. So the guy commenced to tear me up again. So now I'm thinking, I might as well just go ahead on and get it over with. He gonna beat me up. He done beat me up one time. He might as well just beat me up, and I might as well just get this over with now. And to be honest with you, in my mind, something said, fuck it. Let's fight. What else you got to do? What else you got to lose? What do you have to lose? Because if you go home, you're going to get beat up. You're going to get beat up here. You might as well get beat up trying or get beat up fighting. And so I tried. Put my head down and I swung for everything that I had. And I actually landed a couple punches. I didn't do as good as they thought I would because I needed to learn the techniques. I knew how to box. I could shadow box my ass off. I could jump rope my ass off. I could put a hell of a beating on a punching bag, But a real person was a whole different story. So I tried. And every day they used to put me in there against my will. And I tell you, man, without my permission, I started to get better. Without me intentionally wanting to or trying, just by me being determined to do what this man asked me to, I started to get better. I started to turn things around in that gym where I wasn't so scared to fight. Now in the gym, things are starting to change. But one of the most important things, I look back in hindsight and realize I started getting some confidence. Confidence. I didn't know what that word meant until I got older. I didn't know what that felt like until I got older. But now that I look back and I realize it was confidence I started to feel. Not that I felt like everybody else, because I still had low self-esteem. I still didn't feel like I was good enough or just as good as everybody else. I still felt like I was coming from behind, but I knew I was making some kind of progress because I was eventually being able to do a whole sparring match without crying. Without crying. Because I cried the first few times in there. It was just the fear of confrontation, getting hit in the face, and the fear that if I hit him back, he gonna hit me even harder. So I had to learn to hit back. I had to learn to defend myself. I had to learn to fight for myself. I had to learn to not feel. Ain't nobody care if you feel sorry for yourself. You still gotta fight. Nobody's care if you crying. You still gotta fight. Nobody care if you don't have any self-esteem. You still gotta fight. No matter what, you gonna fight. And that was one of the most important, powerful things that I learned there, is that when things get rough, you just got to buckle down, man. You just got to buckle down and rumble. But many, many, many days it was tough in there, man. One of the worst things that a person could do to me back then was call me a name that they made up at me about me at the swimming pool. This is a name that I won't mention right now, because if I do, it'll bring back some emotions, and I don't want to tell it, because if someone to say that right now to me today, I don't know how I'm going to react to it. But they used to call me this little name and turn around and everybody would laugh. You know, they wouldn't really say who said it, but I would remember the faces of whoever that it came from, the direction it came from. And I used to get mad, and I remember Gene coming to me and telling me one day, don't fight with your mouth, fight with your hands. You know, don't talk with your mouth, talk with your hands. Talk when you get in the ring. Don't argue, don't get mad, don't say nothing back. Just deal with them and talk to them when they get in the ring. You talk with your fists. And anybody who would say something like that, I would remember your face. And anytime they put me in front of you, I would go crazy. I'm going to fight you as hard as I fought anybody in my life every single time. Every single time. Because now it's time for me to start fighting back. It's time for me to start fighting for myself. It's time for me to start taking up for myself. And I didn't take up for myself with my mouth. I took up for myself with my fists. And so I'm going to end part 2 right there. And I'm hoping you all can get something out of that. I would love to do a part 3. If I get some responses, I can tell you about some of the fights that I had growing up and some of the ways that I dealt with having low self-esteem, being considered handicapped, and never really accepting it. I would always hear it, and people would say it, and one of the things that I hated was going to Children's Hospital. They had a unit called the Crippled Children's Unit, and I hated that word and that name but that's where I would have to go. And I grew up with a lot of anger. I grew up with a lot of anger because not only that I was, in that condition, I was getting picked on and bullied, and I had to figure out a way to get myself out of that. And so I thank you for listening. I got a lot more to tell if I'm given an opportunity to. So thank you very much, and y'all take it easy.